Community Board 8. Okay, let me click that off. And we'll get started with a roll call.
Sylvia is not here yet, doesn't look like. Bob?
Here.
Joy Campbell, Privateer? Yep.
Here.
Margaret Della? Yeah. Rosemary?
Here.
Me? Edward Green?
Here.
Yes. Bob Fanuzzi?
I'm here.
David Gelman?
Present.
Ram Singh?
Hey
There.
everyone, good evening.
Hi. Ted Morris? Charles Merdler? Yeah. Omar Murray? Dan Paternak? Laura? Nick?
Here.
Marty Walpoff? Oh, there he is. Marty, you want to say hi?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay. Julia?
Here.
Deb? Travis?
Present.
Sergio? Yeah, okay. Back to Sylvia? Yeah, not yet. Nobody else, I guess, at this moment.
But
Okay.
we have a quorum,
But we do.
and great to see everybody. Great to see everybody. All right, so the minutes were distributed. Did everybody have a chance to look at them, I hope? And is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Which minutes are you talking about?
The minutes of January 5th, 2022.
The executive committee
Oh.
minutes?
Oh, yeah, that's the only ones we can approve. Approval of the
Okay,
executive.
I'm afraid I
Approval- Let me
didn't.
say it again. Approval of the executive committee minutes from January 5th.
I don't have a copy.
Make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Did everybody get it? I don't know.
Nope.
Yes.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, Rosemary. We'll get that. to
Laura?
you. Yeah,
Excuse me, it's Sylvia. I just came on. I didn't realize you were going to be so quick in getting to the approval of the executive minutes. However, I want to point out that there needed to be a change in the report on the visitation situation, and it was never done. So I don't think that we should approve these until something is done. I don't know what Rosemary said. I heard you say her name, but please bring me up to date.
Rob, was there something?
Do you mean the executive committee minutes, or are you talking about the full board minutes?
I am talking the executive board minutes.
So what is the change you wanted to make?
I had spoken to Kira about it at the time that the general meeting minutes were all messed up.
Right.
You mentioned, what?
Can I, so when I was when I was going through the executive committee minutes, I used the wrong SECRA initials. And I couldn't make the change until we discussed it at exec. So if that's what you're
Okay, but
proposing, we
also-
can vote on as amended.
I also want to bring out that it's not an EIS that we're looking for. It's a environmental assessment review. So, it is incorrect. And just to change a word here and there at this time, I don't think justifies voting for the minutes. I was expecting.
Could you restate that? Are you saying it? You do
Excuse
want to
me?
change, you want to change the wording? Or
We
you
have
I
saying-
don't want to do anything. I just want it to be correct.
Okay, so that error, I gotta say, that wasn't it, that was introduced after I wrote the minutes, so I don't know where.
I take
You
full
wrote them and they were
responsibility.
correct, and then they became incorrect? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I take full responsibility of that, Sylvia, like I told you. But if there are changes and you want to bring them now, or Laura, this is, if you want to vote on them next month, then we'll edit them and redistribute. I don't know.
I think that would be the appropriate way to do
Are
it.
there any other comments on the minutes?
Yeah, I just like to say, what you do when you push them for a vote, you don't, is immaterial to me. But it should be clear, at the last board meeting, I raised the issue that the entire paragraph was factually incorrect, that it could not be rectified by one word or two words or something. It was factually incorrect and needed to be changed.
I
Kira,
regret that I didn't listen to the full tape, or I didn't hear it. I wasn't at the January full board meeting. So why
Okay.
don't we hold off?
whatever you want to do, but I would just like it clear. I made a full statement at the board meeting about it, and Kira stepped in and took responsibility for any inaccuracy, and that it would be changed before this executive committee meeting. I do not have a copy of the minutes. I do not. They were not sent to me.
Initially, at all?
Now, I don't have them. I don't have them.
Rosemary, I just forwarded to you.
Okay.
Right,
But
so
thank
I
you. I'm not
never
about
made
to read them
further,
now.
I'm not even gonna defend, okay.
You know what? Generally speaking, we don't send them out twice, but we would be ready to vote on something as amended. But this seems like it's a full paragraph. It's a lot of discussion. So,
Mhm.
okay, so why don't I carry this over to the next executive meeting? Or
Laura, just
the February meeting.
a point
Laura?
of a question or order
Yes.
or whatever, a question, or clarification. I think, Laura, you were calling for a vote on the executive committee meeting, right?
Right.
And that Rosemary is talking about the full board
No.
minutes. No,
No,
you're
no,
talking about the
she's talking about-
executive.
No, I am not.
Okay,
Okay,
that
That's
was
all.
why I was questioning. That was my
Right.
question.
Laura, it would be helpful if either Sylvia or Rosemary submitted to the office exactly what they think is incorrect and the correct paragraph.
that would be helpful. Would that be okay, Sylvia, Rosemary? That would be very helpful, and we'll vote next time. Thank you, Marty. Okay, so we'll vote next time.
What did Marty
carry
say? I'm
over.
sorry, I didn't hear all of it. There was a lot of talking going on.
It would be helpful if you submitted to the office, you and/or Rosemary, the exact wording you believe it should have. And then Kira would be able to amend, and then we could vote on it.
But
Next
it's already
one.
been discussed and she knows what the problem is. So
Right.
I don't understand why we should write the minutes.
All you
Look at
have
the
to do
minutes.
is send in the
You have
correction, for
found-
God's sakes.
You have found errors. Offer to her a corrected version. And she'll.
I don't know
annex it.
why Bob Bender is throwing up his hands and leaving the screen. I don't think that what I brought up was malicious or anything else. It was something
You're
that
100%
was
correct.
going to be done and it wasn't done. And
You're
they should be
100%
correct if you're
correct.
going to vote on them.
You're 100% correct. Now, why don't you help Kira and put out the exact wording you want?
Whatever you want.
Is there any other discussion on any other aspect of the January 5th minutes? Okay, all right, thank you. Thank you, Sylvia, Rosemary, Marty, and Kira. We'll get all straightened out. Okay, I have a brief report. We'll move on to the chair's report. Reappointment letters will go out this week. I was told, I know I'm up this year, but I haven't gotten it yet. So hopefully we'll get that by Friday. Let's see, you might have heard about the program to eliminate the budget gap. It's in the newspapers a lot. The city is.
Laura, could you, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
Could you qualify what you were saying about reappointment letters? I thought we have to submit reapplications by next month.
Same
What do you
thing.
mean by reappointment?
Yeah, to get reappointed, your application that we're up every 2 years. what did you just call it? The reapplication? I call it the reappointment letters. Doesn't matter. We all know what I'm talking about. Every 2 years you have to reapply, but we haven't gotten the
I
forms
do
yet.
understand now.
Okay,
So
okay.
it's
Sorry.
that we have to, I don't believe we get any letters. I think we merely have to submit new applications or reapplications to the borough president's office.
They send us the form, snail mail. I called Tom Lucania
Oh, okay.
to check on it.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Yeah, snail mail. That's why. And he said, you're going to get him this week. So I am just relaying that message. Okay. I'm sure you can maybe go online and do it online, but every year they do send them out snail mail. Okay, so you may have heard about the cities requesting all government agencies to make a 3% cut. We have not gotten that at the board from OMB yet, but we anticipate it, and we'll keep you informed on that. I attended the hearing, the review and the hearing on 715 Terrace View Avenue, the Marble Hill BSA project. In a nutshell, we lost. 4 BSA commissioners expressed their feeling that the latest plan had changed considerably, and therefore they agreed with the applicant. However, they repeatedly made reference to the fact that the community board has, over the 2 years, made many objections, and that the plan, that our objections had a huge impact on the plan. And in a sense, even though we lost, our objections did make a big difference. Originally, it started out at 59 units, and then it was reduced to 24. Originally, it was 7 stories, then it was reduced to 4 with an extra step. So it was between 4 and 5. Originally, there was 0 parking spaces allotted in the building. That was increased to 16. And, at the review session where they're discussing this whole thing, I knew how this was going to be, but of course I hung on for the afternoon for the actual hearing when I heard that the fire department approved the plan, because, a lot of our issues were traffic congestion and the like. So that's that. I did give a report to Chuck. When we sent in our latest resolution, we said it was on behalf of the Land Use Committee, because in order to make our comments relevant for the January 25th hearing, that's what we did. Chuck did say it was a moot point to vote on it at the full board because it's over now. The case is over. So any questions about Terrace View Avenue? Okay. Let me see. On the 661 Broadway, Chuck, myself, Eric Dinowitz, Jeff Dinowitz, and the Andrea Stewart Cousins, the majority leader, and some other Yonkers representatives, we had a meeting with their offices, and we wanted to share how we could work together. Yonkers is very, very concerned and upset about the homeless shelter. And in fact, the Yonkers Broadway bid in Yonkers has made an enormous, letter writing campaign to the Yonkers officials. There was a letter in the Riverdale Press from Main Street Alliance in North Broadway, as signed by also the South Yonkers bid. So we thought it was helpful because there were issues on the state level and the local level that, we wanted to inform them of, and they are going, they are with us on trying to improve this plan and find out information about this plan. And that's that on that. Let me see. That's about it for me. Any questions? Okay, so we'll move on to the treasurer's report. And I want to welcome Joy. This is her maiden report, and very, very happy to see you, Joy, and go right ahead.
All right, thank you. Hello, everyone. This is the treasurer's report for January of 2022. The budget has not changed much from December, and there are no budget modifications. Looking at item number 1, which is the operating budget update, it's essentially the same except for the allocated amounts under personal services and other than personal services. The increase from December was occasioned by salaries and also monies paid for cleaning services. Okay. 1.1 is the itemized breakdown of the other than personal services. The difference for code 600, that's where the difference is from the December budget. And that is owing to expenditures for advertising in the Riverdale Press, also cleaning services, and an order from WB Mason. Okay, and that's for, again, 600 entry. Once again, no budget modifications for January. 1.3, there was an increase from December's 5693. It's now 6253, and that increase was occasioned again by cleaning services, expenditures for cleaning services. And just to emphasize, well, for me mainly, that there is a lag in the processing between FMS and OMB, so there's still items that need to be reconciled. And under 1.4, the rent and energy detail, I'm aware now that OMB pays for these expenditures, but it's not a part of the $269,000 budget. The rent has been paid, although there is a lag in processing. And Laura alluded to the city's initiative to cut budgets for 3%, although there's been no follow-up and nothing that we've been told. But we'd like the executive committee to know that we have a cushion with respect to personal services. The budget is 234,334, which you can see in item number 1, and we're projected to use approximately 204,480. So that leaves us with approximately a $30,000 budget should that PEG requests come through. And that is the summary for the January treasurer's report.
Thank you, Joy. Are there any questions for Joy?
I see David's hand is up.
Yeah, I just want to check. That cleaning thing is extraordinary, but is that related to floods primarily?
No, David, we have a cleaning company that comes into the office, like we're contracted with. You know, they take out our garbage,
Right.
And clean up monthly.
Right, but probably 80%, 90% of the budget's already been spent, and I thought maybe it was because we had the extraordinary flood expenses.
That was part of it, and also when the pandemic was really bad, we had them sanitize the office a few times. So the
And so that's why our
sanitizing,
expenses went up.
yeah,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Joy.
Laura, can I just
Yeah.
mention that I want to thank, for the record, Dio, who was just extremely gracious and supportive, given that she's so close to her due date. She really indulged me, and Kira, just the support and encouragement has been amazing. So I'm very grateful for that.
Oh, thank you, Joy. We're all here for you. Okay, Kira, District Managers Report.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. I'll start off by saying that the Borough President's Office is accepting community board applications for new members through March 4th. The application can be found on our website as well as the Borough President's website. They're urging us to get the word out, so we've been, sharing it as much as we can. I also want to highlight some work that the office has been doing with the 50th precinct. We worked pretty closely with them over the past few weeks on several community issues, and I want to thank them for their the captain and his team for quickly following up on our requests. For example, there's been some nighttime activity, loud music and partying across from St. Margaret's on Riverdale Avenue, and the police have kind of been doing nighttime drive-bys of that location just to kind of check on it. Should residents continue to see any of this suspicious activity, they should call 911 immediately and the police will respond. Last week, I'm happy to announce that the Bronx District Managers met with the new Commissioner of the Community Affairs Bureau for Mayor Adams, Fred Kreisman. It was a really great meeting, and I look forward to working with their office on community issues and initiatives. The commissioner had worked at CAU under Mayor Bloomberg, so he's pretty familiar with community boards, and he seems very supportive of our work. We've been contacted by the new Director of Community Affairs for Sanitation, and we're working on scheduling a meeting with them as well. I just want to remind everyone that STAG will be attending Monday's LU land use meeting to discuss plans for 3741 Riverdale Avenue. So that's going to be a hot topic.
Okay. Any
Thank you.
questions? Thank you, Kira.
Yeah,
Okay.
I got one quick question.
Sure.
Regarding the community board application process, in the past, they needed to attend a meeting. Do they need to, is there still an affidavit process, and is it, do committee meetings count, or is it still just the full board meeting?
Deb, that's interesting. I don't know if committee meetings count. I'm happy to ask tomorrow and get back to you.
Okay.
But it is the affidavit. It is the affidavit
Yeah, that
process.
still exists. We
Yeah.
have to sign off on it, but I don't think committee meetings count, but I will check and report at the full board meeting.
Okay, great, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, so we'll move on to committee resolutions. We don't have too many this month.
You want me to go, Laura?
Kira?
Sorry, somebody was knocking ferociously at my door, so I had to run.
All
Give
right.
me just 1 second and I'll pull up the resolutions.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was frazzled. Okay, Ed?
Okay, so Public Safety Committee had one resolution for a full liquor license renewal for Riverdale Steakhouse located at 5601 Riverdale Avenue. 50th Precinct stated they were unaware of any notable disturbances, complaints about the establishment. The committee voted unanimously to approve the application, and that's it.
Okay, thanks, Ed.
Is the word steak misspelled?
Yes. I must have been thinking about vampires.
With a fork, right to the heart with a fork.
I'll make that correction. Thank you.
And then the Traffic and Transportation Committee has one resolution, which is in honoring Bill Stone by having a street co-naming, and it would be at the corner of Manhattan where's I don't have it in front of me. Hey, Kira, could you just scroll up a little bit? I can see the actual street. 237th and did I lose her again?
Hudson Manor Terrace.
Hudson Manor, thank you. 237th and Hudson Manor Terrace, the corner. It passed unanimously. We had a really nice presentation of by his wife, who gave his life story and told of all the work he'd done for the community. And we had lots of people come out and speak in favor of this co-naming.
Hey, yes, that was lovely.
Roll. Certainly I'm in favor of Bill Stone was a friend, but I have a problem with the first sentence. This strikes me as funny.
I agree.
I, William Stone, meets the mandatory. I don't,
The history of or something, I was debating that too, Marty.
The meets the mandatory that there are requirements for street naming. So it's just really just to say that he's meeting the requirements by being deceased for 2 years or more, being nominated by 3 or more organizations, which are on the list to be kept, blah, 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 by the community board. That's all.
totally agree. I just think the lead in I, William Stone meets the mandatory requirements.
Maybe the memory of the history of Bill Stone, but that language is peculiar.
I'm happy to change it. I just, his history doesn't meet the mandatory requirements. It's the fact that he passed away more than 2 years ago and he's been nominated. So maybe the request for this naming meets the mandatory requirements.
That works.
That makes more sense.
Yep.
You know, whereas Bill Stone has been nominated, starting out with the warmer part, has been nominated by 3 or more, by 3 organizations.
How about has been nominated and meets the mandatory requirements?
Or a street naming.
By
But you could start off with, whereas the late I, William Bill Stone.
Yeah, because when it looks like I, you know,
Right.
meaning I, so yeah.
Whereas the late I, William Bill Stone.
Nominated for a street co-naming in his honor.
Whereas a request to co-name a street in honor of I, Bill Stone, meets the mandatory requirement.
Okay. So whereas a request for the co-naming of a street in memory of the late I, William Bill Stone, meets the mandatory requirements whereas a request for co-naming a street.
Sure, do you have any other ones that you can give her as a background? You can punch it up before Tuesday.
Meets the mandatory.
Yeah.
I think we've got it. Whereas a request for co-naming a street in memory of the late I, William Bill Stone, has been made and meets the mandatory requirements for Community Board 8 street naming by being deceased for blah, blah, blah. Does that
Or,
make
you
sense?
know, if you made the third one,
What,
first
Kira, can you stop sharing and I'll share mine
Sure.
so that people can see it? Oh, can you enable my sharing?
Yeah, should be good now.
Can't this wordsmithing be done offline? Because we don't actually need it tonight.
What, are we done? I guess if we're done, then it'd be great if it's to be done. So whereas a request for co-naming a street in memory of the late I, William Bill Stone, has been made and meets the mandatory requirements for Community Board 8 street naming by being deceased for greater than 2 years and has been nominated by 3 or more organizations, which are on the list required to be kept by the community board under the New York State Charter. Whereas the location bearing the name change has a specific connection to his life as he resided nearby, and where he served our community as an active member of Community Board 8 for nearly 40 years, and during his tenure chaired this thing and was vice chair and served 3 terms as chair of Community Board 8. Additionally, he served on the board of directors at AHRC NYC, providing much needed services for people with disabilities for nearly 50 years, eventually leading the organization as president for 3 of those years. Therefore, be it resolved, the Bronx Community Board 8 supports the co-naming of the corner of Hudson Manor Terrace and West 237th Street in honor of Bill Stone. that okay?
Any other
Okay.
comments?
Okay. Fine.
Good. Those are all very, very good. Okay, so I don't think there's any other resolutions. So now we'll get to committee member issues for discussion, and I have one for sure that I'd like some help with. So may I go ahead?
I
Okay,
see David and Ed's hand up.
okay, why don't we do David and Ed, and then I'll go. Okay. Go ahead, Ed.
Okay, the one issue I just want to bring is at our last meeting, we had 6 SLA applications and only one of them showed up. So there was 5 no-shows, which is highly unusual. I've noticed over the, over the past 6 months, we've starting to see a few more no-shows. And, our committee's current policy is we will not approve any SLA from a business that does not appear at our meeting unless unusual circumstances warrant it. So, but the recent trend of these applicants not showing up is a little bit troublesome. And I believe probably COVID restrictions and some of the difficult times our communities have been going through have given some business owners the impression that they're exempt from following some of these standard protocols. So what I would like to do, and again, the only reason I'm bringing this up right now is to try to, I want to make sure I'm following proper procedure with all this, but I would like to have our committee draft some type of either a resolution or a letter. So in the future, when a business fails to appear before our committee twice, I would recommend that we send a letter to SLA stating that the business in question did not appear before us, despite multiple requests from the board for them to appear. So I'm going to try to draft together a standard letter for this purpose, pending approval by our committee and members of the full board, if that's even needed. I just really wanted to bring this out to just try to clarify what process, and am I violating any bylaws or process by doing something like this?
I don't believe so, because the committee and the committee chair in conjunction make up a policy. If you feel that a letter will be a standard letter, it'll be the same letter for everyone. Definitely work on that draft. Yeah. And certainly.
Any other minds in the room have any objections to this, or is this, am I going down the right path with this? I guess not.
And
Sounds great.
No, I had my hand up. I was just waiting to be called on.
I didn't, Bob, go ahead.
Ed, I don't think you have a choice. I think you're doing the right thing.
Yeah.
I would just say that this could be a warning of distress in the business community. You said 5 out of 6 is a no-show, and calls to the businesses and some inquiries about the status of their operations would be in order. We know just how devastating this is on morale of business owners, and not to say, Ed, you should do anything differently, but that this is worth some outreach to the local business community, and perhaps even to the bid, if they are within the bid. Ed, I don't know, but it's concerning. You don't have a choice, but it's really concerning when you see drop off like this, and there's always some kind of stress behind it. So I really think it's an excellent thing you brought up. Thanks a lot, Ed.
All right. Yeah, I just like to respond to that really quick. But yeah, we do outreach when this happens. When somebody doesn't show up, we do reach out to them, and we usually get them back the second time. But just because it's happened so frequently lately, I just feel that, I mean, from my point of view, the Public Safety Committee has a responsibility to make sure that a proper screening process occurs, and so our residents of the community can be served by reputable establishments that follow state law. So the trend is troublesome. I don't want to have a lot of applications just go straight to SLA without going through our process, because we'd be failing to do our job of screening a lot of And we've had some suspect businesses come through that have had their application turned down. And without this process, that wouldn't have been the case. So that's my
Yeah,
concern.
the process is correct. It's the reason why I'm just wondering. Kira, have you heard from anybody or anybody who's in charge of that committee about why and what's happening?
No, we haven't, but I've been in contact with Ed, just going through, bring his, his ideas. But I haven't heard anything, Bob.
Pablo called all those businesses the next day.
Yeah, he followed up
sure,
and
They're in
he
touch,
actually
right.
went physically to some of them.
And
He
they're all in
pops into some of
operation?
them.
They're
They're
all
all in operation. For one of them, they forgot. One of them, they didn't have enough
Yeah.
staff to work that night. So
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're just a myriad of different reasons. But we're going to start reaching out to them sooner with a reminder. We usually remind them twice. We're going to try to do it a little bit more. And I think Ed's letter will kind of hammer it in for them. Obviously, some businesses have good excuses. They're low on staff. It's family-owned business. They can't get out, that they can't join on the meeting or whatever. So we also try to understand that aspect too.
Yeah, it's during dinner service as well, when we're having our meetings. If there are no more comments for Ed, we'll move to the next one.
I just had
Okay.
one question, Ed, which is how would they remedy this? So if we have a letter, and I totally think it's a great idea, and I think it's really good way of enforcing the policy and moving forward without having it kind of hang up the committee. Is it possible that the letter goes to the SLA and then there's also an equal letter that's drafted that would go out to the business itself saying what the remedy is, since it's their business, so they're going to have to figure out the next steps. They would have to eventually come back towards the community board, right?
Well, as far as a letter corresponding with the one sent to SLA, I think that would be the purpose of the original letter in the first place, to let them know that this is going to occur. And I really don't think we're going to have to do this too often, because they are going to be given multiple opportunities to respond. We're going to reach out to them. Pablo reaches out to them. Nick has offered to reach out to them, with the economic development. I talked with Nick about this, so Nick and I are on the same page with this. I don't think there's going to be an issue, and I think that initial letter will suffice.
All right, so Sergio and Nick, comments on this particular issue, right?
Right.
Okay, Sergio. Go ahead.
So are these all new? These are all new applications that are not showing up?
No, one was a new application, and 4 of them are well-established businesses that we all know, pretty much.
And the 4 businesses had issues?
No, they just didn't show up for their SLA hearing with us. That's
right.
I don't know of any issues they have as a business. There may be, for all I know, but all I know is they didn't show up for our committee meeting.
No. I mean issues as in their problem neighbors, their problem businesses.
No,
none of these businesses have any issues like that.
So then, I think because of when we have our meetings, we really need to reassess the policy of having every single one who's been here for decades come in on a renewal. This costs them money. This is a burden to them. If there are no specific issues, I think we are, and now we're going to be basically threatening something as a community board. I fear that we are putting ourselves as antagonists to these businesses rather than figuring out ways that city services can support them. And that's the policy for the sake of the policy is not reason enough to send to send letters that may or may not be listened to, but if they are going to cause problems for people. And I think that's a bit strong arm in an unnecessary way.
Can I just respond to that, Laura?
all right.
Well, the letter would be sent obviously after there's been multiple attempts to have them come back. And I guess we would have to be ignored multiple times for that letter to go back. But it's an interesting thing you bring up about having to have them appear at all because we've known them for many years. And that's something we can definitely take a look at and think about. The only problem that I see at face value for that is then we're going to start picking and choosing who's going to appear and who's not. And it could appear discriminatory against some other businesses that just because we don't know them as well, we'd want them to appear and others not because they've had some type of good reputation with us for over the years. So I think it's important to, hold everybody to the same standard with regards to that. But again, if anybody has any ideas about that, I'm certainly open to listen. Thanks.
Nick?
Hi, thank you. Yeah, very, very good points that were raised about this, and Ed and I have talked at length about this issue. I think the intention of the letter would be, more informative, and the follow-up would be, in other words, if we got to the point where we had to send a letter to SLA, ideally, I think the letter would specify, Sergio, that we haven't had any issues with this particular business, simply stating that we weren't able to vote because they weren't, they didn't attend. So as Bob said, I don't think we have a choice at this point, but I definitely think it's worth revisiting because you raised some very valid points.
Right. I mean, sending a letter to the SLA threatening somebody's business, the only thing that they have done that we don't like is not talking to us.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can all see what that looks like, where that's going. And I do think that there are metrics to measure. There's 311. There's a precinct. There are metrics to measure when we need to speak to somebody that can be applied to everybody. If you've got this, we need to see you. If you don't, but anyway, I think the violation being not kissing our ring is to get a letter to the SLA for somebody's business. I just think that's a bad place for the community board to be.
Well, this certainly bears further discussion. It's been a very robust discussion, and it will continue. So thank you all for that. I think, David, you wanted to comment on a different topic?
Well, no, yes, but this as well. Anybody who establishes a restaurant or what have you knows very well how important their liquor license is, and they know up front from the SLA to get their liquor license, they have to go through a number of checks and get a measure of approval from us up front. And we typically say, for the first year, you got to, close at 1, et cetera. And then they know that, May 30th, that their license expires and that they have to reapply. So they're aware of that. And they know that they have to get approval from us. And then when they fail to meet with us twice, each time, we try to contact them and let them know that they have to come before us. Just, it's only about 15 minutes. I've never seen one go longer than that. But they're aware of that. And all we are doing is saying to the SLA is they did not show up. And the SLA may send a letter saying, the community board disapproved your renewal and it will expire May 30th. And that probably will be done 90 days before it will actually expire. So it may be a little bit inconvenient, but this is the one thing that we have to protect our community, to make sure that all these restaurants are, concerned about being good neighbors. I don't think we're saying, sorry, you didn't show up twice, you can never get a license. Just, you got to get it in gear and make sure in the next 30, 60 days that you do. And if for some reason you don't think it's important, well, then maybe the SLA does have the right to say you're not an appropriate participant in the community. But I can't remember the last time we turned down a license. I can't remember the last time the SLA has turned down a license. I think that what Ed is suggesting here is very reasonable, particularly because of all the work that we do to follow up to make sure that they know.
Okay, David, any other comments? Oh, then I'll move on to Marty's hand was up.
Okay, no. Well, Marty, did you want to talk about the SLA or something else? Marty, you're muted.
Something else.
Okay, then let me go on to my original topic. The budget hearing. As I sent out into the email last week, we were expecting by about January 15th to get a response from OMB on our submissions for fiscal year 2023. And we'd hope to talk about the letter tonight. And as I said, it would be a definite maybe because we didn't hear from OMB. Hopefully we'll hear from them before Tuesday, because in theory we are going to have a budget hearing on Tuesday. I would expect that, given the fact that we are supposed to respond by February 15th, somehow OMB will get back to us sometime next week. That's my guess. So that too on Tuesday will be a definite maybe. As I noted in the email, please sort of set aside some time where whenever we get the response from OMB and it's distributed by the office or the link is given by the office, that you take some time and look at your part of it for, comment either before Tuesday or before whenever we, are able to write our response for February 15th. So that's all, as much as I think we know at this point. Just the other reminder, please communicate with your committee members before your committee meetings this month to say, this is a time that our committee, whatever your committee may be, will be compiling list of capital budget priorities and expense budget priorities. And you should come out of your February meeting with those two lists. And again, next month in March, take those two lists, create amongst your committee members a preliminary priority, and then in April, approve those priorities for submission to the board office by April 20th. Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
David.
questions?
Any questions for David? Thank you, David.
David, are special committees allowed to make budget recommendations?
Not directly, I don't believe, but as I think we've talked about, or generally has been talked about in concert with the other committees, is a really good place for you to talk with the other chairs and talk with them about creating requests.
Okay, any other questions for David? Marty.
Yes, thank you. The first item is I'm confused about, and I am looking to my committee. This calendar is weird this month because the committee will meet after the board meeting. But I received yesterday from the Conflict of Interest Board a number of dispositions, and one of them struck me, requiring me to contact COIB for clarification, and I'm not sure where the fine line exists. A member of a Manhattan Community Board who works for the Armory in, I guess, in North Manhattan, who is the executive director of some agency that uses that facility, spoke at committee meetings and community board meetings. The community board was operating on the premise that there were complaints against the Armory in general. And so this woman spoke up on behalf of her agency and spoke up on behalf of well, at both committee meetings and at community board meetings. And as a result, she was fined $1,500 for abuse of the city charter. She should not have done that. And I was somewhat confused, so I wrote and I said, how does this differ? Please explain between the 3Ds. We have many people over the years who have had conflicts of interest, have expressed it, have divulged, discussed, and not voted. Are we in jeopardy if there's a new rule? And the answer in the fine line is not that she spoke on behalf, not that she spoke up for an agency of which she participated, even though she disclosed, but because she appeared as a representative on behalf of that agency. And that's why she was charged. So I'd like my committee, and it will discuss this fine line between if you divulge that you have an agency and you discuss, are you crossing that line? And I'm gonna leave legal people on my committee to help define that. But I say this as a word of warning because there are many people on the board who do have other interests. And if they speak, are they crossing that line? We've not come across that yet that I'm aware of, but it's just a heads up. Secondly, is Deborah's on having the radio, please? The second one is, I didn't mention it at the last board meeting and I should have. We discussed it at the community, at our LRE meeting. And I would recommend people to read the minutes. Sergio was good enough to send me an article about the New York City PBA suing the Conflict of Interest Board because the Civilian Complaints Review Board had gone into executive session on continuous occasions without announcing why they were going in and what they were going in for. Same thing. And then eventually coming out with a new set of rules concerning how the CCRB operates. The PBA complained that this was a violation of the open meetings law. And I don't know why they went to COIB as opposed to going to COG, Committee on Open Governments. But in reading the article and reporting on it and discussing it at LRE, it seems that the COIB was terribly lenient, that while they attacked and accused CCRB of behaving improperly, and the fact that they didn't announce why they were going into executive session and didn't announce a whole number of things, no big deal. And so they denied the PBA. So I just mentioned this because the whole concept of open meetings law is something we're concerned about. And just finally, the article editorial, Riverdale Press, 2 weeks ago or so rankled me. I did write a response, but my philosophy has been for many, many years, write the letter, get it off my chest and throw the letter away because I don't want to be involved with the Riverdale Press. But the whole objective that they're concerned that minutes are missing and they're not being filed properly and timely, I just want to remind everyone, A, there is a requirement that the minutes be available within, was it 12 days following a meeting? But the law is very interesting because it has that phrase, if practicable. So it's a pretty wide hole for someone to slip through. Why it wasn't practical, my pencil broke or whatever, but I think we ought to adhere as closely as possible to getting our minutes in and our minutes published. That's it.
Amen. Thank you, Marty. Now, Nick and Margaret, are your hands up from before? They're up.
No.
Margaret, would you like to make any comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to very briefly just speak in support of what Sergio said earlier about the restaurants. If there's no issue, I don't think we should force them to come in. Businesses, nonprofits have all been operating under, as we like to call them, unfunded mandates. So all the reviews of people coming in, their vaccination cards, their IDs, standing at the door, making sure all those compliance requirements are met, et cetera, et cetera. If there's no issue, I don't see a need to bring folks in for renewal. Secondly, the SCREE meeting is this Thursday, and as you all know, the deadline for submitting your respective standing committee efforts on improving equity within the community board was due on the 31st. I have not received any response from the following standing committees, and I just wanted to let you know in case I have missed your email or in case you were happy with what we wrote or anything like that. So I just want to be sure that we're covered. The standing committees are budget, education, health and hospitals, housing, land use, LRE, and public safety. So if you did have feedback on the list of activities that your standing committee is working on regarding racial equity, please let me know. I've had phone calls, I've had emails with folks who just want to clarify or edit the language. Any of those means work, but I just want to be sure that you all are comfortable and that this list is up to date. Thank you to all of the committees who have responded. I really appreciate all of the chairs. And please let us know as soon as possible. I also want to encourage all chairs to be taking up an issue of racial equity on your committee agendas. Again, I've spoken with a number of chairs who are taking on specific issue areas who, maybe have a lengthy list that they've been working on for some time. We'd love to talk with you. All of our SCREE members are on all of the standing committees. And so, we're all a part of the work that you're doing. And so we want to be sure that we can overtly talk about some of these issues so that they're not siloed under SCREE, but that we're normalizing these conversations under housing or under education or whatever it might be, so that it becomes part of our community conversations. So please let me know if you'd like to speak at a later time or shoot me an email. I'm happy to discuss further.
Margaret, I have some ideas on that. Let's talk offline, okay? I'll give you a call.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, excellent. All right. Bob, is your hand up from before?
Yes, Laura, I apologize. I'll bring
Oh,
it down.
no problem. Okay, so I have an issue that I definitely need your feedback on. We have a problem. We have to end our meetings earlier. It's unacceptable the way we've been going on till 10, 10:30, quarter to 11. Not every month, but I have gotten complaints from board members. I have, let's put ourselves back into when we met in person. The building closed at 9:30. By a quarter to 9, everybody's already looking at their watches. They know they have to walk to their cars in the cold, dark night or wait for a bus, drive home, whatever. Everybody's leaving, wants to leave. So we started at 7:30 and the buildings closed at 9:30 in the old. And we finished our business in 2 hours, or we were at 9 o'clock, 2 hours. Now we start at 7 and we just go on for hours. I think it's a serious problem because, number one, we lose our board members, we lose our quorum, they're not there for votes, we lose our public, because the public, when you see how many people are on at the outset of the meeting, and then who's on at 10 o'clock, the numbers are dwindle. So we lose our public as the night progresses, so even it's embarrassing if we're saying to new members, you have to attend a board meeting and they see that it goes on so late, it may discourage them from wanting to apply to become board members. So I've stated what the problem is. And now I need everybody to think and support. I mean, it's on the chair to run the meeting and to recognize members and to assign the floor. I think I'm going to need more discretion on moving things along, limiting questions. Certainly you can't limit time of debate where there's resolutions, but chair's reports could be limited. I have to say, I already spoken to some elected officials and said to them, you know, we finished at 11:15 and we're going to ring a bell at 3 minutes. So, I mean, I'm trying across the board to look at every way to, you know, to shorten the meetings. And it's certainly on my executive committee to support this. Think about giving highlights in your reports, asking people to refer to the minutes. You know, we have a system now where our committees are in alphabetical order, and the committee that meets first 1 month goes last the following, and everybody moves up. And that has worked fine, but we may want to consider what other boards do. Committees that have resolutions go first, because you don't want to start discussing a resolution at 9:30 at night. And, you know, even 9 o'clock, you don't want to start there. And then the people, the public who's on, because they're interested in that vote, they've already dropped off. It's just something to think about. I'm not saying we're making changes. If we can get this down to 2 hours the way it used to be when we met in person, we won't, you know, have to make these changes. It's just something to consider. So I need your suggestions. I need your help. And that's it. Now I'm ready to listen to, I see a couple of hands up. I see Marty and Bob and Ed, and but do keep your comments briefly, to be brief. Otherwise, we won't be modeling what we want to do. Okay, Marty, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't want to stifle discussion here. Just want to note that for the last couple of months, LRE has been considering the whole issue of rules to be established from committee to committee, and time limits are part of that discussion.
Good.
So I'm listening now with open ears.
Okay, Bob Bender.
Yeah, Laura, I want to second what you just said. You and I have discussed this issue. And, you know, part of the problem here is, as you said at the beginning, when we had to meet in person, you had to get from wherever you were, your home or your office, to the location where we were meeting. And then you had to go back again at the end of the meeting. So everybody was mindful of the time, not to mention, as you did, the institutions themselves that sometimes put time limits on how long we could be in the room they offered. Now all you have to do is walk from one room to another. So you know, the incentive to end the meeting at an earlier hour has dissolved over the pandemic. That's a factor that has caused these meetings to lengthen, I believe. I don't think there's any question about that. I think we should give serious consideration to the idea of putting committees that have resolutions first on the committee agenda, first, second, et cetera, because you're quite right that you know, we shouldn't wait until a half hour into the committee reports when we get to a committee that has a couple of resolutions to discuss that are important resolutions. So I am in favor of changing the order in which we consider the committees to reflect the committees that have resolutions first. Those are some things that we can do. The other, as you said, is that if everybody's doing minutes, and that's a big if, and that's an issue that Marty just addressed, but if the minutes are getting done, there's no real reason why we need a long report from the chair of that committee. If there's a particular issue coming up at the next committee meeting that chair feels everybody should know about, that's certainly worth pointing out in the committee report. But otherwise, when we met in person, there were any number of committee chairs who said, read my agenda, see my agenda. And that's a perfectly valid way in which to give your committee report. And I would like to encourage the chairs to reconsider doing that sort of thing when they give their committee reports. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Ed?
Yeah, Bob Bender pretty much just said everything I wanted to say, but I just, also with the resolutions, I agree with that too. And the main reason is because a lot of community members come out and have to stick around for extremely long periods of time before getting to see how the board is voting on issues that they have a lot of vested interest in. But the only other thing, I think you hit it right on the head, because I remember these 9:30, these places are going to close at 9:30. So we all kind of knew in the back of our mind that we had to keep it moving or cut it down a bit to get out at a specific deadline. Now, I don't know how this flies with the state and our bylaws and everything, but I would think that perhaps we could have some type of a loose deadline of when we really want to stop the meeting at. And it doesn't have to be anything really set in stone, but just kind of like a guideline that says, okay, we're going to go till 9:30 or something to that effect. And just to, because I think a lot of this is psychological, like you and Bob both talked about it. It's if people feel they can go on and on and on, and there's not some type of pressing. I mean, when the doors close, the doors close. That's one of the reasons we knew we had to be out of there by a certain time. We don't have that anymore. So now we have to set some type of an artificial deadline. I feel if that's.
Yeah, I feel it's out of control how late it is. I really did get a lot of complaints. People have to go to work the next morning. And whatever, nobody, we're gonna have to, I'm gonna have to be a little bit more aggressive in moving it along too, which is very difficult. Nobody wants to be rude, but I'm asking for your support. I see Deb's hand and then David.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that just as a new chair, I think it would be great if the board had just some guidelines for new chairs on these types of procedures for the main board meeting, of like, what does a good chair's report look like? Or like, what are those notes? What would be included? I think those kinds of resources would be really helpful. And then the other thing, and I don't know how practical this is, but one thing that does seem to often cause the committee meetings to go very long is the amendment process for the agendas. Whenever we want to simply add something to an agenda, it can turn into a lot of parliamentary procedure that I think actually gets in the way of just getting the people's business done and moving on. And so if there's ways to think about simplifying some of these processes, just so that they're just more common sense and standard, so we can just move on, add it to the agenda. And I think that might be worth considering.
Yeah, no, thank you, Deb. I think that if people think about in advance their highlights of what they want to say and think, okay, when I testify, and I'm sure some of us have gone to meetings where you have to testify, like I did it at BSA, I testified. I had to really think of my main points because they're giving me 3 minutes. That's it. And I have to, and I think if the chairs think this is the main thing and it's going to take me 3 to 5 to cover it, then you say, read my minutes, and then you stick to the highlights or the biggest issues or, something. I mean, of course, if there are resolutions with a committee, that's obviously going to be more time. But I think we just have to be cognizant and try to give ourselves a deadline and say, I only have a few minutes to give this report so that we can move things along. So thanks, Deb. I see David, and I thought I saw Margaret, but was that before?
There's a thumbs up she did.
Yeah, just
briefly.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I'm in favor of all of it.
Okay, David.
Yes, one of the things I think that could be done is I think that our manager and our chair could preview a lot of these things with the chairs because I think we spend an awful lot of time in meetings discussing individual items, going back and forth about individual concerns of a resident or what have you, and over the language of a resolution. For example, and Deb, I'm not picking on you, but Marty and I mentioned something really, really minor. We spent 4 minutes discussing it. It should never have been discussed in this meeting. It's a great conversation for you to have with Kira offline, because actually you were not approving anything tonight. It was to be discussed on Tuesday. And again, this is just an example, but we should be doing much more offline.
Okay.
Thank you.
Seeing no other hands up for committee member issues for discussion, is there any follow-up on outstanding issues? Is there any hands on that? Seeing no hands and having no further business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, and I want to wish everyone a wonderful evening, and thank you so much. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Good night.
Right.